Santosh, your voice is
Sorry.
very low. Your voice is very low. Maybe.
1 second. Hello. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's far better.
Okay. All right. So I'm saying, do you have any questions before we move on with our next session? I mean, the DAX continuation. So whatever we have discussed the last session, hope you are able to understand.
Yeah,
So,
like yes. Sorry, please go ahead.
yeah, okay. Santosh, I'm kind of good with everything, but whatever the functions which we are using in the formula bar, that we don't have to worry, right?
Yeah,
Means
I have
we
not covered it yet. Anything like we didn't start learning functions yet. Yeah.
okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Then I'm good. You carry on with it.
Okay. So cool. Then we shall continue. I think Sandhya and Malika have not joined. Fine. I think Malika is just joining. All right. So we can just start off while they join. So today I'm going to just tell something about the syntax, like how we write the formulas, and then we going to continue with our writing of measures. Okay. All right. So then let me just show you uh, something like I'll just create some random measure. Okay. I think we already have a measure here, right? If you remember, we have written some measure. Okay. We'll take this example. So what we do is first we write some name of the measure. So here, as you can see in the formula bar, this is called the formula bar. Okay, the space, you can actually expand this like this. You can click on this V button, it will expand it like this. So that sometimes you end up writing big, like 5-6 lines of code. Okay, so that's when this is useful. Once it is done, you can minimize this one like this. Okay, then you have to give your name, whatever measure is you're planning to name it, and then you write any function name. So for example, if I rewrite this function, what I would say is like as a sum. When I'm searching for the function, so I told you a measure is always goes with some aggregation, some function, right? Because it has to sum it up, or it has to count it up, or it has to do some calculation, some calculate function. There are a lot of other functions. So measure has to be kind of starting with some function, or in fact, if not function, you can directly multiply. As I told you, we can directly multiply a column 1 with column 2. If it is a number, right, you can multiply them. But in order to get use of it as in a whole, like when you are using it within the column, it has to use some aggregation or iteration, some function, so that it does the calculation. So you write starting with some function. So whenever you write some function, Power BI has something called IntelliSense, which is inbuilt way of having you suggestions with a lot of DAX functions. What are the tables within the sim report and all. So as you can see, I just clicked on years, and then it is showing a lot of functions like substitute with index, sum, summarize column, sum makes is subtotal. There are thousands of functions basically in DAX. Okay, literally thousands of functions. So it is trying to help us. Okay, is this the one you are writing? Okay, I just type sum. This is the one you are writing. So it's not only helping us with the function. Okay, it is also helping us with something called information icon. What is this? You can click on this. It says, okay, add all the numbers in a column. It says, what does this function do? Okay, it is kind of giving you the uh, you know uh, information like what exactly the function is doing, and it is kind of helping you a lot by making sure you understand the function. Okay, for example, if I go to some x, let me just delete it, and then as you can see, the same information icon is coming on the top now. It says, okay, sum x, you need to write the syntax like table comma expression, and what it does returns the sum of an expression evaluated for each row in a table, right? So like this, not only that, let me show you the other example, like count. So it is giving you the information here, count the numbers in a column, right? And then when you open up the bracket, it says, okay, count the numbers in a column as well as the syntax of it. Basically, this additional information that you're seeing on the top, which is count of bracket column name, that says it's a syntax. That's how you have to write the function. Okay, that means it says count function is expecting only one input inside of the bracket, which is column name. Okay, let's go back to sum x. Here you can see sum x is expecting two things. One is table, the other one is expression. Okay, table and the sense table can be anything. From your right side, you can see a lot of tables. So the same things were called as queries when you were in edit query or in your query editor, right? These were called as customers query, dates query, products query that you already know. Once we apply the changes and come back to our Power BI desktop, here they are called as tables. Table 1, table 2, like customers table, dates table, products table, regions table. So here the same table name, it is asking boss, which table are you kind of looking to do the summation? Okay, I say, okay, this is the format. So you can see it returns the sum of an expression evaluated for each row in a table. So what I do is I provide a sales table, okay, comma, and then the summation. What is my summation? Like I written already, right? My expression. This is my expression. My expression was order quantity. Second, what it is doing is, as I type in order, it is trying to pick up some columns from the existing table and show is this the one are you looking at? It is trying to help me out, right? Order quantity and what is that? Total unit cost. It was something called, yes, total unit cost. Right, this was my formula. So what I've done is I have given some table and then I have added some expression. Expression is nothing but the thing that you wanted to do, the actual formula or the actual logic, right? This is the main logic. So you have to multiply them. That will give you the total cost. So that's the actual logic, and there you write some expression in terms of expression or in terms of column or defining the column or whatever the actual logic. So now what has happened? I just close the bracket. So opening bracket and close the bracket. Again, you have to take care of all these things. Only then the things work. Otherwise, you will get an error. Okay. If you write additional bracket also, you can see it says in red color, it says there's some error. Okay. That you have to kind of observe. Okay. When you click on enter or you click on tick mark, it says, okay, the syntax for this is incorrect. That means it says, boss, you have an additional bracket which is not needed, right? So whatever mistakes that you do, it's trying to show us in terms of errors like this. And this, since it was already added to the visual, that's where the visual is also showing, boss, there is some field which is having an error, right? So when I delete that and do it, click on here again or enter, click on enter button, it has committed, and now I don't see any error and the formula works fine. So basically, the idea is to understand here what is the, when you type in the sum or when you type in the formula, some function, it is trying to help you out with the suggestions, like what are the functions available. This is the function that you are looking at, and then you have some table and then the expression. So basically, what it is doing is, basically you have to deal with different tables, different columns, right, in measures. So what are you dealing with measures is basically dealing with different functions, different tables, different columns. Again, your column name is something would be table, with table and the column, right? Because there are multiple tables. So if it was from regions, it was like regions and whatever column. So that is how it is coming up. So we have to observe like the syntax or the how the columns are working in here, right? So you have to get familiar with this. And then sometimes only tables, like you have seen count, right? Count, I showed you, it was only expecting a column name, it was not expecting any table name. Like the column would be along with the table itself, but idea is to understand there's no separate table as here it is, right? Yeah. So sometimes there would be only table as well. The expression could be only table as well, depending on the requirement. Okay, depending on the logic that you are planning to write it. All right. So basically, this is the higher level syntax, and then if you are kind of writing some different variables and all, you can still write it in different lines and different comments. So if suppose, let's assume you wanted to add some comment here, like for example, I wanted to write it this in the second line instead of the first line. I wanted to add in a good formatting mode, like usually, like this. So this is like, good. As soon as you look at it, okay, you understand, okay, it has got a table and then it is doing the actual expression. So I just kind of put it the same formula into different lines so that it's easy on eyes. Okay. So basically it's kind of a formatted one. Okay. So basically I can write this in various ways. Suppose I can also highlight to my the next developer who's working on the same report. I can highlight some comments saying that this is for the calculation of total cost.
So Santosh, here the comment where you are writing, right? You are explaining like why you are writing that particular measure.
Hmm.
So is it a regular norm or like only few follow that?
Very few follow. That's not a regular norm.
Uh-huh.
It's not compulsory. It's not
Okay.
compulsory though. Sometimes maybe you have given some work, right? Maybe
Hmm?
let's assume you are being pulled for some replacement. Maybe somebody has gone on leave and you are picking up their report. There's the already built-in report.
Mhm.
Maybe it's in the end stages, but you are picking up that report and like, if you are doing some changes, it's always better to write, this is what I've done, because tomorrow something happens with that report again, they blame you, complete blame will be on you, like you have screwed it up,
True,
something
true.
like that.
Totally.
That
Okay.
time, yeah, when somebody else's work is taken over,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you use majority of the time. That's what I've seen,
Okay.
because
Okay.
when we are taking up somebody our work, or we are assigning our work to someone, we
Mm-hmm.
make sure like what you have done, just let me know, because sometimes what happens, that person might not be accessible, or even though you for everything you cannot go back to him, like there are minor things that they keep doing.
Yeah.
So whenever
Yeah.
they do the comment, and if I'm working and I can see, okay, oh, this person is doing this, is okay,
Mm-hmm.
the comments will help them, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, totally. Yeah, I agree on that. Why? Because the code, when you are writing a particular report, the code won't be small. So where you can point out and say like there is the issue, but in the long codes, this commenting will help.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is one of the way of commenting, and also we can write some variables in here. I'll be explaining variables, a little later once you start understanding the basic formulas. Otherwise, you get confused with the variables. So this is how the syntax part goes like this. By now, see, everything is in the IT listings itself. Like you just start writing it, you will be provided with the suggestions for the formulas, suggestions for the syntax, suggestions for the columns, tables, right? Only thing is you need to understand like how to write what is the formula, and just kind of make things in place so measure works. Okay, so let's start off with measures today, and let me just contact mark and remove this. Let's start off with few measures. So again, there's something called there is one more thing, like I have created a measure under sales table, so it is storing as a calculator column, like there's some calculator symbol, you can see product sales, the total cost. But the best way to write the measures in any report, or best way to handle them is, because see, the measure is independent of the formula. You guys agree? I'm saying independent of the table. Independent of the table. Even though it's sitting on the sales table, I am saying that it's independent of the table. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. By now you should be knowing that. Like sales, I clicked on sales, and I wanted to see the data in the sales table. Okay, all good. I'm able to see the order category, which is basically a calculated
Calculated
column.
column. Yeah.
Between two columns.
Yeah,
Be-
It's
I'm not seeing the measures. You can see I'm clicking on the measures. I'm not seeing it. Because
yeah.
even though for the namesake they're sitting in the sales table, but in fact they are independent entities, because that does the calculation on the fly whenever they are pulled it onto the report. However, they might be using the column from the sales. That doesn't matter. If I'm using you, it doesn't matter. I have to sit with you. Okay, something like that. So they can use any columns anywhere, but they are not part of the sale. They're not, dedicated to sales, just like calculated columns, right? So that's where they need not be in the sales table. So they're always advisable to maintain a different key measures table. We call them as a measures table or a key measures table. Yeah. So basically, for measures table, we can actually create a basic, what do you say, empty table. So how do I do that? So there's some provision in Power BI to create an empty table. Let me just show you that. You can see on the top, there's something called enter data. Enter data.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, this enter data, when you click on it, you click on the enter data, you can see there's a create table option.
Yeah.
That means it's allowing Power BI is allowing you to create any table. So I can create any table. So this is an alternative or a tip or a trick, you can say. We can create some key measures table in total. Okay, I could call them as my table name is key measures, and I can just directly load it. I have an empty column, as you guys have seen. It is loading with the empty column 1, which I am going to delete it because it's not going to help me, the empty column. The purpose of this table was, you can see the new table has created key measures, and there's an empty column 1. I was least bothered to rename it and do some changes on it because I was not interested on getting any columns there. My interest was only having the measures all together into one single table. So what I do is I click on this measure, and on the top you can see the name of the measure, the format, the details of the measure, and then the home table of the measure. It says the home table is the sales, currently sitting on the sales. I can move it to the any table
Yeah.
basically.
Key measures.
Key measures.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I've done, I just moved
Then
that
it's
to
done.
key measure. Yeah. I can also get the other measure because I want all the measures to kind of maintain neatly into one single key measures.
Yeah, Santosh, would you mind? Can you repeat these? Take one step back and can you repeat the things, please? It's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
And Santosh, increase your voice little bit more.
Is everybody facing the same issue? Because I see my mic is very close
No,
and
here and there,
Yeah,
here and there. Like,
here and there. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. How about now? Is it better
Yeah,
now?
it's-
Because I'm very close to the mic and I'm right now. So maybe I have
Now
to
it's
carry
better. Now
myself
it's better.
like this. Yeah.
I mean, like in between, like suddenly it's dropping again. It's
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So it's kind.
All right. All right. So yeah. Well, so I want, okay, let me just quickly repeat it. So basically what I'm just doing is I'm just trying to kind of make all the measures into one single folder like structure, just like a folder like structure. I'm just moving into different folder like structure. For that reason, I've created a new, because it's a table, it's not a folder, it's a table. So for that, I need to get a new table. I clicked on, you can see enter data. There's an option, create a new table by typing or pasting in new content. You can actually there's a provision to actually create a new table here directly. If you have some raw data, you can say students, you can see I can just type in like, okay, I can just type in your names. Okay, I can just type in, this is a random data, and this this is name of the table is here, sorry, and here the column names like student name. Okay, so this created, and you can click on load. What has happened is a dummy table has with this temporary data has been created. Just show you that. Okay, let me go back to the students table. Can you see that? So there's a provision within Power BI to create a temporary table. So for using that provision, I kind of made a trick so that I can create a empty table and move those measures to this table, and I could delete this empty column which was coming initially, which I was just bothered to kind of handle it, right? I will delete from the model this empty column. Are you sure you want to delete column 1? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So let me cancel before I don't delete it now. Before that, I wanted to show you. Click on click measures. There's an empty column 1. However, you guys know, even though there are two measures will not show up even though you create a separate table or a separate whatever. The measure is measure, right? It doesn't show up.
Yeah.
The purpose of
That is the whole criteria we are
yeah.
doing.
So the purpose was not that. The purpose was to kind of hold them separately. That's the reason I'm creating. So let me delete this again. Uh, I didn't delete it earlier. Let me just delete it from here itself. You can see that's gone now. So even though click it, it doesn't show up here. Okay. Let's go back. Now you can see that symbol has changed.
Right.
The
Yeah.
reason I've
Yes.
deleted it for to get this symbol, because when there are no other columns, that would show up kind of measures. It's a measure. So this is the way that measures to be kept in this kind of a fold, this kind of a structure, so that you have all the measures set separately and all the columns tables separately. Okay. You can also delete this unwanted table, but yeah, can let it be for now. Yeah. So this is it, and we can continue now creating few measures. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a new page. Maybe I'll add it here. I'll add a slicer, which basically comes from the dates table, so that I can start. Sorry. Basically, I can start my measures. So I'll creating an empty table here. I wanted to kind of create an maybe I would show this with the customer names. So you have all the customers. Now I wanted to create some different sales for each customer. So first I'll go with we'll start creating measures from today. Okay. So you have learned the syntax, you learned how the formula has to be written, and so my first formula is going to be total sales. So there is sales table and there's a total revenue, which is actually a sales information. So now I'm going to create a new measure. Okay, I'll just click on this key measures and on three dots and click on new measure. That will open up a new formula bar. I will say total sales. I've given the name of the measure and I'm going to write the function of the measure. Simple. The function is going to be very simple, which is sum.
Yeah.
Sum of total revenue, which is the sales. So I can just search for total revenue, which was suggesting me with the column. So I have to pick the column. I can use a tab on my keyboard, or I can directly click that okay, from here as well. So when I selected that and close the bracket, this is the formula. It's going to be our total sales information. Click on tick mark, that will be committed here. As you can see, total sales. Now I'm going to drag and drop here this table to understand, okay, if I'm able to calculate it. Yeah. So this is the total sales for this customer. This is the total sales for this customer or during this range. So maybe I can play around with this by changing the interval. And the values changes, right? So this is the way automatically, as I've learned few concepts, like automatically it is doing the context level calculation. It is going to filter the data. It is doing a lot of the things depending on the model, right? So that's all is happening here. That's how you're getting different values when you're playing around with it. That all you learned, what is the context, how it is filtering and all, right? So this is the formula for total sales. So basically, I showed you some. Okay. Before that, I wanted to talk about something called, what do you say? Maybe what we'll do is I'll create a couple of functions and then I'll explain you what is happening. Okay. Difference between aggregation and iteration. Okay. So basically, this is an aggregation function. Okay. Aggregation function. Aggregation means what? Aggregation means summing it up together, or it's a togetherness, or it's a there are a few set of aggregation functions. Okay, there are a few set of aggregation functions, like I'll just mention, like sum, count. Okay, and then we got min, max, average. Yeah, average, actually full form of average. There are
You write
some.
somewhere, Santosh. We don't see like
Oh yeah,
you're just saying.
I'm writing in a notepad. I think I've shared. Let me just write it here, like sum. Okay, min, max, then count. Then we got some different functions. All these are aggregation functions. Okay, average. So all these are aggregation functions. Aggregation in the sense like it's going to calculate like together, like for this customer name, as you can see, it was able to do the aggregation, all the sum, all the sales for this entire customers, aggregation. Where the iteration function does a different job, it goes to each row by row. Okay, that we'll talk in a while. So we'll finish off all the aggregation functions, and then we'll discuss the difference between, because iteration function does the job little differently. This is a aggregation function that looks so what happens exactly, you guys already know, right? So when I'm saying sum of total revenue for this customer name, it basically, if you go back to the model, what it try to do is it tries to filter the data for each customer. Like you have a customers table for that particular customer, the data will be filtered, and it will identify the sales total revenue information, and once it get filtered like one to many, that set of data will be summed up based upon that particular customer. For that customer, that is the total revenue, it will summed up. For that, the particular date ranges. Again, there's another context also coming, right? So that's how it does the calculation. It's a regular way of doing the calculation. Okay, it sums up on the whole set of data that is coming up. So that this is one of this what is this aggregation function. So we'll be writing some of the aggregation functions. Okay, so let me create another measure. Now I would say I want to create average sales. I have something called average function. As you can see, I just type average and just give me suggestions. There are different types of average functions. I want the very first one, and also I can see what it does. It returns the average arithmetic mean of all the numbers in a column. So it does the average. So I need to open the bracket, and as you can see, what it is expecting is expecting just a column name. What is my column name? Total revenue, isn't it? Close it and click on enter. Average sales is created. Drag and drop in this one. As you can see, the average sales is also coming up. Average sales. And similarly, we can create few more measures. I would say minimum sales, min sales. In short, I will call as the min sales, and we got something called min function. As you can see, it's saying okay, it is the smallest numeric value or smallest string in a column, or the smaller value between two scalar expressions. Ignores logical values. So what it is doing is, it is a kind of providing you the minimum value of the column that you provide, the minimum value of the the column that you're passing into that bracket. Okay, so here again, what it is doing is, it has got two scalar expressions, ignores logic. So sometimes you can also pass two values. It is going to provide you the minimum of the both. So usually we use it in a regular formula like this, total revenue. So what we do is, we kind of get a minimum value every time for this customer. For example, let me show. Just click on tick and just drag it here. You can see. So the minimum value that it had is this one. So what exactly is the minimum value is, the customer might have had so many sales in this date range, like maybe from 5th of what is this first? Okay, 17th. Let me just make it very small too. What I do, I'll just select something from the same month. Okay, maybe May. It was May 2019, right? Let me select something for a few days. It was 15th, right? So maybe from 30th, maybe I'll just do very small. Or even I would say, instead of 30th, I'll just make 18th, 3 days. Okay, within 3 days, we don't have much data. Okay, fine. So what is happening is, the minimum value is something like, for example, this customer has ordered some different set of data over the time, over these days, like these many months or a couple of months. Out of that, the total revenue of a specific product is, the minimum value is this one, right? The total sales that he has done is some 100K, but average sales that he's been doing throughout the period is 12.125, and then the minimum sales is this one. Similarly, we can have a maximum. So basically, it is providing you the minimum value from the product, whatever, like whatever time he has purchased. Max sales, I would say similarly we have a maximum value, like for example max function, and I would say total revenue. This is the minimum, this is the maximum, right? So average is this and the total is this. To this, what I've done here is I've just changed it to 15 days. Under 15 days gap, what is happening is the minimum is 2000, the maximum value is 24,000. Right? For some products, again, some customers, you might have only ordered one order throughout. The total is 16, average is 16, minimum is 16, maximum is 16. Yeah. So whenever there are multiple orders from this person, maybe we can find out which is the minimum, which is the maximum. You're getting my point. So that's where the difference here. So we have something called total quantity. Just create a new. So how much quantity that person has sold? I can say total quantity sold is equal to, I would basically, I do a lot of things. I could sum of, we already have an order quantity column. If you guys remember, order quantity. Now you'll get a better picture of the data. I'm just counting the total quantity sold by the order quantity. Let me drag and paste it here. Now you can see these many orders, like, maybe the quantity wise, you might have placed, 37 quantity, but the order number could be the only one, right? So that's the difference between that. But again, as you can see, there's a different number of orders that this person's customers have been selling. Okay. So this is the total quantity ordered and the total sales generated, average sales, minimum sales, maximum sales. And we can also get the same value differently. For example, the total quantity sold, like this, we have got it by doing the sum function, but we can also do in a multiple ways. For example, I could also count, based upon the same thing can be counted as well, right? Let me just say total count, let's see, count of what's the order quantity. So we can use the functions differently. It all depends on what you need. So here I'm just counting the total different quantities that has been ordered. This is the actual quantities order, but this is a item sold. Basically, instead of quantity, this is total item sold. This is the total order quantity. The right naming would be, I'll say, total order quantity. This is orders, like sales order. This is the item sold. Within one order, there could be multiple items. Total items sold. Okay. So maybe in a one order, maybe in few orders, like this is four orders, four different orders this person might have ordered. Out of that, there are 37 items in each, like, multiple orders. So as you can see, there's only one order this person has ordered. Maybe 5 items are there, but the one order cost was same value. That's why you can see the same value. Wherever you see one, almost you see the same value. For example, here you see the one, the value, minimum, maximum, everything will be same because he has done only one order. When you have two orders, you get minimum and maximum. For example, you have two orders. You can see maximum is 19,000, minimum is 2,000, and the total is sum of minimum and maximum 21,000. Right. So we are getting a lot of statistics of the different orders. Like as you can see, this the entire data was not there, but we're writing some different measures and trying to get all the information, right? That too by changing the sizes, like changing the date ranges, or we can give a lot of other filters also. Okay, just
So Santosh, a quick question I have.
yeah,
I mean, I observed you were writing the DAX expression previously while using some X. You were mentioning the table name first and then the column name, right? So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
now
We
here
done
you're
to,
just
yeah, we have not actually when I've written sum x, I didn't ask you to focus on the formula because sum x is an iterative function. So that's what
okay.
I told you, right? After aggregative functions, once we are done with aggregative functions, in a while we are going to learn about iterative functions. Iterative
Okay.
function has a different syntax. that you observe.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Mhm.
explain you why is the difference and what the purpose of iterative function. So you'll get a clear
Okay.
picture. Okay.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
In few minutes, we are going to cover it up in another
Sure.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have similar because I have two more functions to show up so that we can kind of finish that and then jump start with our iterative functions. Okay. So let me show the other function. Maybe you can use count rows, count like you have seen total order count. I've just used count of that. Again, the same thing can be counted. Basically, there's another way of counting. So what I told you, the counting the orders, right? Sales orders. So there's another way. Somebody says, like Kalpana says, sometimes we can also count the sale order, right? For example, if you go back to your sales table, and you can see I can count my order numbers directly. That is also giving me the actual number of orders, right? The order count, like you said, this is the order count. Instead of counting the this column, I could have counted. So either way is the same thing. Now what I'll do is I'll just say total. I can say total count alternative. Okay, so the total order count alternative. Actually, you have multiple functions for counting. I would use maybe a separate function here, like count a order number. I would count. Just drag and I'll show you. You see the same values will be there. I'm just counting order number now. If you look at this, I'm just counting the order number now. This count A is basically, it does the same counting. Okay, you can see it counts the number of values in a column, right? Number of values in a count. There are multiple functions. Sometimes the count AX is there, like so they are specific, way of using it. So there are so many functions. Like we cannot say. So as you learn all these functions, what happens is you say you get more comfortable using, like what we do is we try learning majority of the functions we use and we kind of master them. But once you have built your skill, you might be using different set of functions as per your choice. So some functions does the same thing in a little bit different way, but yeah, you kind of use it in different scenarios. So there's no hard and fast rule that why are we using the same function and all. Okay. So it's all about, that's why you see the thousands of functions, we cannot master all the thousand functions, right? So we kind of learn, some very much used functions, which any report or anything can be done. So we'll kind of, once you learn them, in some scenarios, you might be getting a different requirement that you have never worked on. Maybe that scenario, how to look out for some functions. By the time you will be learning and you can explore and you can, do your work done. Okay. So these are all, what are the functions called? Aggregation functions. Aggregation functions. These are all doing the aggregation on a single column. So far you have seen aggregation functions. Now we are going to look at iterative functions. Okay, we're going to learn iterative functions. What are the iterative functions? Now the question that Divya asked is coming up. Just create a new measure. So already we have written some iterative function like you identified it. This is the total cost. Yeah, total cost. Let's go back to that total cost. I'll remove this measure part. It's actually a total cost. Okay. So what is this? This is, as Divya observed, I have written this formula a little differently because the syntax was suggesting me to do the same, right? You've seen that, right? With the syntax suggesting me, yeah, X says, okay, table comma expression. So basically, whenever you see X at the end, that function is called iterative function. So, blind idea that we can have. Whenever you see X, that function is called iterative function. What is iterative function? You have seen aggregative function. You've seen
Yeah, which
aggregative
has
function,
only
right?
some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sum and all those
Yeah.
things you have seen, right?
Right.
Min, max.
Right.
Those are aggregative functions.
Mm.
It sums up as a whole set, right? Whenever I
Mm.
showed you how it filters and sums up as a whole. Sum x is an iterative function. What it does is It does things differently. It basically it scans the table first. Okay. It
Okay.
scans the table first and it does the calculation row by row. So it basically looks for the entire sales table and it goes to each and every row. Iterative function, the name itself says it's iterating, right? Iterating between. So it iterates between each and every row. So this order quantity into total unit cost is basically is going to scan the entire table. Let's say, let me just, what I do is I'll just add a new table. We'll have iterative functions here. Okay, above are all aggregative functions. What I'll do is we'll add an iterative functions here. Now, what I'm going to add is maybe I'll add a total cost. So what is this? So this is the total cost. So what is happening here is it is going to iterate for each customer, like under each table, sales table, it is going to calculate. If you look at the formula, it's going to each sales table and it is going to calculate this order quantity into total unit cost each and every row, and then it is going to send the value based upon this filters, based upon this customer date filter, like to the whatever customer filter we are doing and dates filter we are giving here on a slicer, then it is going to get those values and give you. But before that, it's going to scan the entire sales table. It's going to scan the entire sales table and going to do this multiplication of total unit cost and order quantity each and every row. And it's going to do it in harder way, like each and every row like this, and it is going to keep it in the memory, and then it is going to do the sum. Since it's a sum x, then it is going to do the sum based upon the filter, like based upon the date filter range. Maybe you have given few days, few months of data filter, and as per that data it is going to filter the data, and as per the customer name it is going to sum it up and giving you. Because it is doing little longer job than the regular sum. Yeah, you're getting my point, right? So iterative function goes row by row. It does the calculation row by row. Okay, that idea you have to have.
Okay.
That's the default idea that you should have. Iterative function does the calculation row by row. Okay. Whereas see, basically each and every I showed you in the data table. Let me just go back to that. So each and every row here, this total unit cost is being multiplied each and every time, and it's going to multiply 7 times this, and it's all the values are going to be saving into the memory. So this first value will be keeping it in the memory and goes to the next row and saves it, and it keeps the second value in the memory, third row memory. And finally what it does is, once it does for all the rows and save it into the memory, then goes and does the sum at the end. You getting my point? It does the sum at the end. So that's the actually. So it's going to the longer path. It's going to row by row. So you have to remember, iterative function does its calculation by going row by row. The syntax is such a way that, like Divya was asking, why we are using tables. The syntax is that's how it is defined. Yeah, we have to first pass the table so that it knows which table it has to
It
scan through.
recognizes the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's way it scans through the entire table and does its calculation iteratively. That is what is iterative function. So we have written already one iterative function. We will write few more iterative functions. We have different iterative functions, like I would say average cost. Average cost. What I do, average x.
X. Okay.
Calculates the average of a set of expressions evaluated over a table. Sales table, right? And the same thing, order quantity, that logic remains the same. Logic won't change. But since it's just an average, I'm just passing the same logic, and the formula is changed. Average cost. Okay, average cost. And I'm going to, maybe these are 10 in place. So that's why average is again, this by 10. That's why using same number almost. Yeah, I can see the 10 orders. That's why you can see the average, maybe the total cost for those 10 is So let me just create another one. Now I would say minimum cost that has incurred for me. Cost, I would say minix. By writing this multiple times, you get habituated writing measures. You do the same replication in your. I hope everybody is creating a Power BX file. I'll be checking it off suddenly sometime because I asked you to do the practice. So I'm not going to share this PBX file until end. So I'll be kind of asking you to replicate the same thing, right? You might have. I'm assuming you might have already done the data model part and the table
Yeah.
part. Yeah. So
Yeah,
continue
yeah,
creating the
correct.
measures. Yeah. So while doing, right, you don't copy paste it, right? You just try to write it repeatedly like I'm doing, right? So that you will get habituated to writing the formulas. So once it is done, click on a tick mark and drag it. You can see this is the minimum cost that has been incurred. Same thing, you can create a max cost. Max X and then sales and then order quantity star and then total unit cost. Close the bracket. Click on enter button. It is committed. Drag and drop in your table so that you can see it here. This is the maximum cost that is occurred. Minimum cost. This is if it is a maybe yeah. If it is a single order, maybe you would know. You should have some single value in place. Maybe you can see maximum minimum same. I told you it. Yeah. So yeah. So basically this is how we write the iterative functions. So this is so understanding of the iterative function is important, how it works, but otherwise it does the same thing, like it has only X and it has the specific syntax where you need to pass the table first and the logic next expression. Yeah. So these are the aggregation functions, iterative functions. So far you have learned writing so many measures. As you can see, so far you have written so many measures. You by now know how to write a measure, how to write a calculated column, right? So we're going to go to the next level now. It's called measure branching. What is a measure branching? There's something called measure branching where for example, I want to calculate my total profits, my total profit. So as you have seen, there's a total sales for this person. This is the total sales, 6,164, right? The same person, the total cost is 4,376. That means the total cost that it has occurred is this much, but the sales has happened this much. So the profit is what? Total sales minus total cost. Yeah. So what I do here is measure branching. That means I will not write any formula to subtract that. I'll just use total profits. I'd say I use measure minus measure. Total sales, yeah, minus total cost. You can see when I'm searching it, it is showing differently. So far you have seen searching tables, searching functions, yeah, syntax and all. Now what you have seen? Total. All these are measures. You can see the symbols and that. So I'm going to
Right.
search for sales measure minus another measure, cost. Just search for cost. There's so many cost measures. So total costs. Yeah, you can see the highlighting little different color, and you should see that. So what I'm doing is I'm just writing some measure branching here. This measure branching technology or measure branching within Power BI does as allow to write a new measure using another measures. This is a new measure called total profits by using other measures. Yeah, when I click on tick mark, it will be connected as a new measure. Total profits. Yeah. So yeah, so this is basically, let me just copy. Maybe I'll duplicate this so that we have something to keep practicing on. Maybe I'll keep this heavy. Have total sales. I would drag total cost so that I can see the difference, like I was discussing, right? And I would drag total Profits, very good.
Profits.
Yeah, difference. Can you see this? So this is how. So basically, total profits is now generated using the measure branching technology. I'm using the measure on a measure, right? Subtracting measure one with measure two, and then I can, as a part of this business requirement, I might also want to calculate something called profit margin. People know once the profit is there, they wanted to see what is my margin. So as you can see, profit margin usually how it does, usually it does by, total sales minus total cost by total sales, right? Total sales minus total cost by total sales. That's how general way of doing the profit margin. Since we already have a total sales minus total cost, which is a profit, total profit. So I will say total profits by total sales. Yeah, I would say total profit margin. So the formula usually goes in typical calculations like this: total sales minus total cost, okay, divided by total sales. This is how it goes usually. But what I am doing is, since already calculated this one, right? Profits, I'm passing the same thing. Okay, total profits by total sales. So in Power BI, this divide by symbol is okay, fine, but DAX has a better way of doing the division. Okay, instead of this slash symbol, control instead of slash symbol, I have a separate function called divide. You can see when I search for divide, it is giving me that function divide and saying save divide function with ability to handle divide by zero case. Okay, open the bracket. I can see the syntax of it. What it is assuming: numerator, denominator, alternate result. What is my numerator? Total profit, comma. What is my denominator? Total sales.
Sales.
What is my alternative result? What is alternative result? So whenever there is a scenario divided by zero case, like anything divided by zero is in infinity, right? So if you are getting such kind of situation, it says provide me the alternative result, so that wherever is that scenario, I would give the alternative result. So I can say 0. So whenever you see some scenarios where you get infinity case scenarios, at that point of time you will be given a result 0 instead of errors or infinity values. Yeah, this is a safe way of handling a divide in Power BI. So I can see total profit margin. I can just drag it here. Getting the percentage margin, 29%,
Right.
24%. But yeah, it's a better way to look at these percentages. There's a format options that you can deal with. For example, I clicked on profit margin, right? And actually format this. By default, it is given whatever the calculation does, but I can actually convert it to percentages. As you can see, I selected this total margin, and on the top you can see the properties of that particular column or the measure, and you can see the format. I can change it to from general to percentage. When it does, what happens is it gives us the percentage directly, because I know it's a margin. I know it is good to look that figure or the value in terms of percentages. That's why I've converted into percentage. Yeah. So we have that flexibility to format our data as per our convenience. Yeah. Not only that, for example, you can actually change the format of total profits, total sales, and all. Like depending on if you are from general or decimal, you can change the whole number. You can actually change the comma separated, or you can change the number of decimals that you want. For example, you are getting zeros, for example, double decimal. I can restrict it to 1. You get only 1 0 here. And click on 1 and enter. You can see 1. If you do not want anything else, you can enter 0. Yeah. So you can play around with your, you can click on comma. It will give you the comma separated. You can see comma. You can attach dollar to it. A lot of formatting options that we're going to see later. But yeah, I'm just showing you. You can see. I wanted to add a dollar. Maybe I know it's a currency, dollar symbol. So we can do all this formatting from here. I'll just remove that. I can see general currency. It's kind of converting it into a bigger number. So let me remove all that. Okay, let me keep it auto. I think two are fine because every others are two, so that it remains systematic throughout. So these are the different options that you can play around. Okay, you can actually format things since I have formatted the percentage margin as per my convenience. So far you can see you have created different measures, aggregative measures, iterative measures, measure branching. Yeah, and then we are going to learn table functions maybe in tomorrow's session. We have got something called table function. So far you have learned like what you can do with measure DAX. You can create measures, you can create calculated columns. What else we can create using DAX? I've told you in the initial, like in the last session when I started off with DAX session.
Could you please repeat again?
Using DAX, we can create what all we can create. One is measure, second one is calculated column.
Calculated columns, calculated tables, calculated measures.
Yeah, calculated tables.
Tables.
Yes.
Tables. Yeah.
Tables.
So that is what we have not created any table yet.
Yes.
Yeah, once
So,
we create,
yeah.
learn how to create the table, and you told that we are going to use one syntax where we can give in between two table relationship for active and inactive
Yeah,
relationship.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. That we are going to cover. Yeah, you're right. So that's we can create a calculated table. So tomorrow for that calculated table creation, we need few functions. Those are called filtered functions or table functions, especially table functions, which are dealing with the tables. So far you have learned some iterative functions, aggregative functions. Tomorrow we are going to learn table functions, which are helping us to create different calculated tables. Okay. So I want you to practice whatever you have done. Create this same number of measures, right? Same structure, key measures on a separate table. Yeah, maintain it this way. Create this kind of table so that you'll get to know, analyze things properly. Yeah. Any questions before we wrap it today?
Not at the moment.
Okay, so we already jump started learning DAX and we have written few functions. I'm assuming because you are already doing a good practice, you are comfortable so far. And something you have to focus from tomorrow. We are going to these are all starting functions which are kind of good, and then we are going to table functions, and then this function called calculate, which does a majority of the job. That's where the different scenarios we'll be looking at. So next two sessions, more focus, more practice. Okay.
Santosh, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, we don't have to remember the functions, right? Because the interviewer, they'll ask us to write in a paper or no, right?
I had the same question.
Yeah, so basically
they may ask you to can you tell me the syntax for this scenario? We need to write, I think.
kind of close, Kalpana. Yeah. So basically, see, if they are expecting us to write some basic functions, they will expect us to write it properly. For example, they ask me to write some iterative function, maybe using some X. So they assume that whatever question they're asking, they assume that I write a table comma expression. They assume that I cannot try directly some X of column name. They say, what are you writing directly column name in the some X? Getting my point. So they know, they want to know that you know the difference, you know the syntax, right? However, it's not exactly that you can write it all the time, but approach and the syntax, right? That is
Okay.
important. So you can say first you pass the table name and then you write your logic where again I filter something in the filter function. I use the calculate function, then use minx. So you are able to correlate what is happening within the function and what are the major output of the function, right?
So basically,
Okay.
we're telling that no need to write what column name and all. Just before we write the column name, we get syntax up, isn't? We need to mention that.
Yeah, suppose I'm asking an interview question. I want you to calculate some average, of some total cost like this, order quantity and unit cost based upon iterative function. I will not say anything, I will say write using iterative function.
Average
So
table.
then you have to write
column
average
name,
x, and you have to write the table comma expression.
Table and
I
okay,
expect
got
this.
it.
This is very basic. So I expect this output. Only when the large functions, like the large calculations, I don't expect A to Z, but I expect the approach. I expect you to handle it properly, saying that, okay, first I use calculate function. Under that, I pass the calculation first, and then I pass the filter condition. That means he knows calculate function. He knows what to pass first, what to pass second. So little bit approach I will see, not the A to Z exact entirely in entirety, but yeah. But I expect you to write in the function, the approach, the syntax, syntactical thing. Because if I ask you to write some iterative function, you always write a table comma logic. You don't write a column name like sum x. Just some function is there, right? If you just want to count something, you say count of column name. You just provide count of that column. For example, if I'm counting how many students I have, I count the column name, right? So that's how you do.
Actually, my question means, do they ask to do in system or do they ask in
So it all
paper?
depends. It all depends upon wherever you are. Maybe sometimes in the chat they want you to say. Sometimes they have some different, UIs that they communicate. So they do differently.
Here we can get some basic syntaxes. Means obviously we remember the basic syntaxes, but it's easy to do in system, right?
Yeah, it's
Instead of-
easy to do in system, but with the practice, you'll be confident. That's it. Don't
Oh,
worry.
okay.
Yeah, don't worry now. With the practice, will be once you have practice, you never get a doubt. Like if it is an iterative function to calculate average, you would simply pass in the table and then provide the logic. That's it.
Okay. And one more question.
Mhm.
And usually, in previous class, we discussed that the measures they sit in the fact table. But as I understand today, they don't have to be sit in the fact table. They can be anywhere. They can be
Good
anywhere.
question. Good question. So measures has to be used with the fact tables, not sit in the fact table. Actually, the statement is. So what is that means? Measures has to be, whenever you're writing a measure, like you have written so many measures now.
Yeah.
So many measures now. What it is going on? Majority using fact table. Sales.
Yeah, they are using sales. Yeah,
Sales. So
fact they are
that's the
using.
meaning of it. So basically, you have to use the fact table to write the measures because your granular data is sitting there majority. Yeah. So majority is suggestible to use the granular data, which is a fact table. But it's not a
Yes.
mandatory. So it's a suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, if it is not sitting there because measure doesn't sit anywhere.
Okay. Understood.
All right. Do some practice. We can wrap it up today. Maybe we'll catch up in the next session. Yeah.
Santosh, can we have the recorded session a bit earlier, please?
Yeah, I'll try to get it. Yeah, sure. I think last time you have a weekend, yeah, so and you guys manage. But today I think we need it little early so that you can be on track. Yeah. So before your, I mean, while you wake up, your morning time should be fine, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure, thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah.
Okay,
Bye.
Santosh. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye all. Take care.